So many cars, but so little time. That's this week on Motoring 2006.
TSN's Motoring 2006 is brought to you by the new Q from Quaker State. Unleash all your horses.
It's that time of the year again, and I don't mean winter. It's the time for Motoring's Car of the Year program, and like last year, we want to invite you, our viewers, to help in the selection to pick the best of the class of 2006, and I'll tell you more about that later in the program. But first, we're going to visit a very popular place to buy a car, but it's also a place that offers an opportunity to take a walk down memory lane.
The Jerem Classic Car Auction features sports cars, muscle cars, hot rods, classic cars, all the way back to 1911, I believe is the oldest car we have here. So we try to focus on the collectability of the car, the rarity or the desirability and what the market's looking for right now. We've seen some incredible action on the muscle cars in the last 5 years.
I'm looking for the originality. That is a big component on how well it was taken care of, that it's unmolested. Is it original interior? Is it original sheet metal? You know, how much fixing did it need to do to make it look good? That's what matters to me.
There's a generation there of people that are looking for those muscle cars that they wanted or had or saw when they were back in their teenage days, and now they have the wherewithal to buy them.
Say, I appreciate fine cars, and I look at cars as art. So I'm coming down very much as a voyeur. However, I have a wife and daughter, and quite often they bait me into buying things. So from time to time, I come home from these auctions with new vehicles. And that's not so bad.
My dad invited me down here, and I found this car that I really like, but he won't buy it for me.
She's a good girl. This is a girly car, and I think it would be very suitable for her.
Give me a little background on the DeLorean that sold here today.
It's a 1983, which was one of the very last ones off the production line. And a special thing about it that it's a Canadian model. They built only 100 for the Canadian market. It has a 240 km/h speedometer as opposed to the US version that has an 85 mile/h speedometer. It has 6,500 original kilometers on it. Sold today for about $31,000. So
is that a good price?
That's a good price for that particular car. It's probably one of the best cars in existence, because a lot of those cars, people put miles on them because they were everyday driver cars.
My name is Bruce Webster, and I'm here with my father's vehicle, and we're going to be entering at an auction here, hopefully looking for somewhere in around $15,000 to $17,000.
We actually encourage the owners to come up with their car to be here, because if you have a potential buyer, you want to answer their questions, and we really, really encourage that. We really work with the customer, obviously, to try and get as much money for the car as we can.
Generally, the price stops going up, and you know it's time to hop back in the vehicle. I'm not disappointed. The vehicle will sell somewhere else, I'm sure.
This particular sale will do between $3 and $4 million here in Toronto. It's been a great auction. It's been going on for over 20 years now, and it's really a spectacular show as well.
You think it's a coincidence I'm standing beside a red car? More later on Kenzie's Corner.
You know, you really have to hand it to Suzuki. A lesser company would have given up altogether. Having invented the small ute market back in 1970, it nurtured it to the point where it became prosperous, only to get swamped by competitors. Well, it's not giving up. This week on Test Drive, the latest version of the Grand Vitara. The good news for Suzuki and its potential customers is that the latest version of the Grand Vitara is not going to go unnoticed, as it's considerably larger and now rides on a new unibody platform with a built-in frame. As for the size, well, the wheelbase has been stretched by 150mm to 2640, length is up by 280mm and the width by 32, all of which makes for a surprisingly roomy vehicle. When it comes to versatility and utility, this Grand Vitara is actually very good. You get a much needed rear wash wiper and you get plenty of room inside the vehicle. There is, however, one major flaw. This door's hinged on the wrong side of the vehicle. The reason? Well, obviously this thing was designed and built in Japan, where they drive on the other side of the road. That means when you bring it to North America, you have to unload it with your back to traffic, and to get from here to the curb, well, you've got to walk around the door. You know, Suzuki, get with the program. This door should be hinged on this side of the vehicle. The new platform also means much more stiffness and a better base of operations for the suspension and the improved ride comfort it affords. For one thing, stretching the wheelbase means there's much less pitch over bumps than before, and when pushed through the pylons, the Grand no longer feels as though it's trying to lift its inside rear wheel. Understeer is also benign, making the Grand Vitara feel more wagon-like than it does SUV. In the past, Suzuki's earned itself quite a reputation for its ability to build good off-road vehicles. Well, this new Grand Vitara is no exception, but there is a catch. If you buy the base or intermediate models, you do not get a low-range transfer case, and therefore you severely limit its off-road ability. The irony is that if you buy the leather-lined model that sits at the top of the stack, well, you do get that off-road ability because it comes with a low-range transfer case. So why do I say ironically? Well, think about it for a minute. The people that like to put their posteriors in leather-lined heated seats typically aren't the type of people that go boonie bashing. There's also much better power from a 2.7 litre V6. This means a stout 185 horsepower and a healthier torque curve. Where the old engine needed to be wound up almost to redline to enjoy the fruits of its labour, the new engine puts 184 pound-feet of torque to the pavement at a suitably low 4,500 RPM. It's also smooth and quiet, even when being worked to the maximum. You know where this Grand Vitara really does succeed is the level of standard equipment. Take this JLX for instance. Power everything, including a sunroof, fabulous radio, seat-mounted airbags, drop-down side air curtains, and this thing, a remote key fob. But what it allows you to do, if you've got it in your pocket or your purse, you simply walk up to the vehicle, touch a button, it unlocks, you get in, start it up and drive away, and without having to put an ignition key in. Now this type of technology is usually reserved for much more expensive vehicles. Factor in the new 5-speed automatic transmission and the Grand's driving experience is rather rewarding. Where the old car crawled its way to 100k in 9.6 seconds, the new reaches the same mark in 8.4. Taking the manual box should shave this by at least another 0.2. The real upside is that passing a slower vehicle now no longer means you need plenty of downhill road ahead, as the Grand will actually bridge the 80 to 120 gap in 8.7 seconds, which is close to being best in class. You know, where previous Suzukis lived in relative obscurity, this new Grand Vitara, well, it's much more mainstream. It's powerful, it's comfortable, it's good off-road, it's good on-road. It's got a ton of stuff going for it. Most importantly though, when you look at the level of equipment you get for the affordable dollar, it's very tough to overlook.
Calling it the 2006 Kenzie car calendar. I'm fortunate enough to travel all over the world and drive some great cars, so I've taken pictures of some of those cars in some great locations. And we're also raising money for an organization called Smart Risk, which is an organization run by a pediatric heart surgeon who got tired of taking hearts out of dead teenagers and sticking them into fat 55-year-old men. So he set up this nonprofit organization to raise money to help educate kids about the kind of risks that they should try to avoid. So it's all on the website, both on the motoring website and on my own website, www.jimkenzie.com. Everybody needs a calendar, so why not have a calendar with great cars on it to support a great cause?
We have succeeded in creating a very new car with new shapes, new surfaces, a lot of tension, a lot of very dynamic gesture in the car. And yet, when you look at it, it can only be a Camaro. Couldn't possibly be anything else.
The car actually ended up having a lot of indirect, maybe even aircraft references, because it looks very fast and very aerodynamic. It's done with a very sheer, clean surfaces and short overhangs, big wheels. The rear overhang is slightly longer, but it gives the car very good direction. You have to inject some DNA, and it has to be recognizable equally to the guy that maybe has a 69 hot rod or a restored 69, but at the same time you have to get the young guys excited.
The idea behind the interior was to really capture the kind of mystique and emotion and feeling of the first generation Camaros, but do it in a totally contemporary way. The key with all the interior components is to telegraph horsepower. You know, the exterior, a lot of times you telegraph horsepower by having big wheel flares, you have a big bulge on the hood. But with the interior, you really telegraph horsepower with all the controls. And those are the areas that we focused on.
It has the 400 horsepower Corvette engine in it. It's got sleek lines. It's absolutely, we think, magnificent for the current marketplace. And we're here with the concept trying to gauge consumer and media reaction to the vehicle, which we think is going to be, based upon what I've seen today, I've never seen a press conference like this with this much excitement. So for us at GM and for Chevrolet, we're thrilled.
What we're seeing here today is the 24th International Meet of the Professional Car Society. Now, to some people, they may not have heard that term before. Basically, the Professional Car Society is a preservation of what we call professional chassis vehicles, and they can range from horse-drawn hearses to pre- and post-war automotive hearses, low and high-top ambulances, limousines, and flower cars. A professional car, loosely defined, as any type of car that has been built on an extended car chassis for the service industry. Real ambulances aren't trucks, and the vehicles they use today are nothing more than a box put on a truck chassis, a person with a back injury. They're just bouncing over every bump. Whereas in the days of a professional chassis ambulance, whether it be built on a Cadillac, Pontiac, or Oldsmobile chassis and extended, these cars, for the most part, the suspension in a lot of the cars was air ride. So if you went over a bump, the car took the ride, not the bump, and not the patient.
This is a 1919 REO Speedwagon hearse. It was first used in Bertie Township in the fall of 1918. It was used to replace the horse-drawn hearse that I have in existence at my own place now. It was converted, it was bought as a chassis and converted by the Finch Coach Company into a hearse in 1918. It was used as a horse-drawn or as a hearse for 15 years, and then it was converted into a pickup truck for delivering furniture. I bought it in 1995, sight unseen from an estate, and then searched for 2 years finding parts, and then converted it back into a hearse. It took me 3 years in total, the project.
Isn't there a band called REO Speedwagon?
REO Speedwagon was named after the car. The engine is the original engine. I had it rebuilt. My friend Don Belfry across the street rebuilt the engine for me in 1998. obviously had some time getting parts for it because the parts department at Rio was closed. But he found out through friends of his that the valves from a 1955 Massey Ferguson tractor would also fit a 1919 Rio, and that's why when we started it sounds more like a tractor than a car. It's a 4-cylinder engine. I believe it's a 25 horsepower. This is the original registration plate for this vehicle. If you really read it closely, you'll see that it says overspeeding, overloading, or the use of solid tires will void the warranty. And 2 lines below that, it'll say that maximum speed is 22 miles per hour. I've never gone over 22 miles an hour because I really didn't want to void the warranty. I don't think about what it was used for. I really enjoy the look of the vehicle and the local history surrounded by it.
People like to look at these things. They're fascinated by the lights. One of my vehicles, which is a 71 S&S Medic Mark I high-top ambulance, which was originally in service in Myerstown, Pennsylvania until 1988, has 24 red lights and 4 sirens on it. Extremely impressive looking car, and when people see that and they see the color scheme, they're immediately attracted to it. And if they can be convinced that this ambulance has probably saved a lot more lives and carried people to a hospital and it served a useful purpose, then they begin to break down those barriers of fear and appreciate them for what they were originally built for.
This is our long-term Subaru Forester with the full-time all-wheel drive. Now, I mentioned on an earlier program that we got caught in the year's first snowfall with our all-season tires on, and still the vehicle was sure-footed. Well, now we have snows, or is it winter tires on the vehicle, and it's simply unstoppable. But what is it? Are they winter tires or are they snow tires? Well, let's put that question to our man in the Quaker State Garage, Bill Gardner.
Well, Brad, the Rubber Association guys want us to refer to these latest generation of specialty winter tires as winter tires. I still catch myself loosely referring to them as snows. I'll write up a job that's coming in as 4 snows. But when you think about it, the Rubber Association guys are right. In actual true Canadian winter driving, a lot of our driving isn't in deep or heavy snow. In many cases, we're driving on roads that have got a little bit of a glaze on them. You know, we've had a small snowfall, and then all that traffic ahead of you has packed it down into a glaze. Now, you get a little bit of water forming on the top of that as your tires go across it. And it's that unbroken film of water that makes it so slippery to drive in the wintertime. So a true winter tire has got the capability of breaking up that film of water and getting you a good grip. And there's a lot of tricks that the manufacturers use to get that. Now, first of all, a winter tire typically has a deeper, chunkier tread, just like those old snow tires had. But we've also got some magic that they've worked in the tread compound to give us back that grip we need in the winter. Most of the manufacturers are using a silica compound, and they use an agent called Zeruma that's mixed in with the tread compound to give it low temperature flexibility and grip, and also prevent it from wearing out prematurely. Also, another manufacturer uses a technology called shelled microbubbles to try and break up that film of water on the roadway, and yet another manufacturer is using crushed or ground up walnut shells mixed in with the tread compound for extra winter grip. We've got an increased number of sipes. Those are the small wiggly biting edges that you see in the tread of a typical winter tire. And this is part of what gives us the exceptional grip on these tires. Now, can you drive a car with all-season tires in the wintertime? This car to my right has got a set of premium all-season tires on it, and it's got pretty good straight line grip to get it going. A fairly narrow tire, front-wheel drive, and good balance on this car. This car will drive okay in the winter, but when you go to apply the brakes or turn sharply, you don't have nearly the grip that you would have with 4 winter tires. Now, we all make mistakes in the wintertime or all year round when we're driving. A moment of inattention, we leave our braking zone maybe a little bit too late, and if you've got 4 good winter tires on your vehicle, they'll make up for those mistakes. You'll have that bite that you need when you hammer the brakes. You didn't realize that guy ahead of you had stopped so quickly, and you'll be able to stop your car and avoid an accident. So 4 winter tires can be a real good investment for a typical Canadian winter drive. Till next week, I'm Bill Gardner for Motoring 2006.
years ago, who would have believed that Japan could ever produce a decent automobile? 25 years ago, who would have believed that Korea could ever produce a decent automobile? And now the next question on everybody's mind is, will China ever produce a decent automobile? There's a Chinese company exhibiting here at the Detroit Auto Show for the first time. It's called Geely, and they're the #4 Chinese-owned manufacturer in their own market. Now, the Chinese have a lot of advantages over the Koreans and the Japanese. First of all, they can see the mistakes that they made and correct them before they even happen. There's a lot of Western influence in the Chinese market already. General Motors is big in China, as is Volkswagen and Toyota, and companies like Geely can learn from their competitors. But I've got a question. Has there ever been a successful consumer products company in any industry, never mind a car business, in a totalitarian regime? I mean, look at Lada in Russia. That's hardly a paragon of quality. The Yugo, well, that was a joke. And the South Korean government may not be the most open in the world, but are you ever going to see a car come out of North Korea? Not in my lifetime. So my question is, will China allow companies to have the entrepreneurial freedom to develop the social, political, and economic structures necessary for a company to compete in the world market? They've got lots of resources, they got lots of cheap labor, they may even have the intelligence. They know how to build stuff because they're building stuff for Japanese and American brand names in China right now. But will there ever be a good Chinese designed, engineered, and built car? Give me a call in 20 years. I'm Jim Kenzie.
As I mentioned earlier in the program, our Car of the Year 1 hour special is quickly approaching, and like previous years, we'd like to invite you, our viewers, to help select the best in class of 2006. So log on to www.motoringtv.com or tsn.ca, go to our poll, you'll see all our nominees, make your selection, and we'll have your results on that 1 hour special. That's it for now. We'll see you next time out as we continue to bring you more stories about cars and the people who drive them.
Well, if I'm wearing a tux and a bow tie, it's gotta be Car of the Year time, right, girls?
You're always right, Jim.
And so we get to the whole point of this hour-long extravaganza. And for once, well, Jim Kenzie managed to get it right. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you our Car of the Year.
TSN's Motoring 2006 has been brought to you by the new Q from Quaker State. Unleash all your horses.